Well, good afternoon, folks. It's the real Captain Kirk here. It's the 20th of January, 2023 here. We're live from One Bethlehem Plaza. Hard to believe here. It's the last Saturday of January here. If you're nice day here, actually, we're 50s and sunny, so it's not quite spring, but it certainly feels nice out there. Countdown to real spring here, if you like the way the sun tracks it, 51 days, 4 hours, 12 minutes, 30 seconds. I'm going to lean with the meteorologist because we think spring starts here 1 March, so that's about a month away. So we're excited about that. We'll start here with a recap here on the world scale here of last week ending here tonight, 28 January. Here in the U.S., tale of two halves, but it was 5.7 warmer than last year, warmest in 3 years, 15th warmest in 38 years, so above average national temperatures. But again, warm east, cool west, 395% wetter than last year, most in 11 years, 5th most in 38, so much above average. Telltale signs here, this 3-year drought La Nina cycle is collapsing. Obviously, the West Coast has already experienced that. Now it's helping the plains as well. 12% more snow than last year, most in 14 years, 5th most in 38 years. So those two systems from Texas and through the Arkansas, Ohio Valley into the New England area here certainly helped the snowy week for sure. So good for snow accessories. Across the UK and Europe, again, they were the coolest in 4 years. So again, cooler there as well. Maps inset left are the trends versus average. One thing that's way up here, we're in fact talking the second most fastest start here in 73 years of tornadoes, 142 of them already. That's very unusual for this point in the season here. So that's the second most in 73 years and the fastest start since 1999. We do believe this trend will continue into the spring this year, especially March, April, May, where we expect the most tornadoes in 4 years. So again, a very active season for sure, and it's already starting that way. We look at season-to-date snowfall. Again, with the two systems we had last week, it picked up some ground here. We're 21% above last year's levels for the season, most in 3 years nationally. Still 10% below average, so not a real snowy season. Don't tell that to the folks in the Sierras in the West, but for where a lot of people live, it's not that bad. 14th least in 38 years. In fact, from D.C. to New York, virtually no snow. D.C., Philly, New York City, even Boston's a little bit below average. So again, not a ton of snow on a seasonal scale. We'll be talking about probably epic snow here for 2023, 2024 as we get into an El Nino type cycle. So look out, snow lovers. There's hope, but we might have to wait till next year. Flu and COVID trends are obviously plummeting as well. Flu had its big type A surge here in November. It's now plummeted, pretty much just going below baseline here as we get into early Feb. So again, below last year's levels. Good news, and COVID cases obviously way down, 93% from last year's big, huge Omicron spike. So good news there as well. Healthier people means higher GDP. We're out and about doing more things, going to restaurants. So again, overall a plus for the economy compared to this time last year. January is almost in the history books here, so we got a few days of forecast in these maps here, but the trends should hold. Here in the U.S., about 6.5 warmer than last year, warmest in 17 years for the nation overall. That's third warmest in 38 years, so much above average. National temperatures, cold spot would be the West and the Rockies. Snowfall 22% less than a year ago, despite all that heavy snow in the West and the Sierras, but least in 10 years nationally, where people live. 9th least in 38 years, so below average there. Rainfall up, 68% wetter than a year ago. Wettest in 6 years, 8th wettest in 38 years. So a good telltale sign here. Starting off, hopefully end this 3-year drought cycle we've been in for the U.S. And that's certainly expected here, as we expect here in the year ahead here. One thing we got to look at here in the short term is just the polar vortex. It got weak and ragged, and when it does that, you get these intrusions, and we're going to get one here in the U.S. But as you can see toward the tail end of this 14-day animation, it looks to get more symmetrical again and stronger. So we'll see. When that happens, it pulls the cold air out and takes it back to the North Pole where it belongs. So a mild trend setting up potentially here in the U.S. for the second week of Feb. We'll talk about that here in a sec. Looking at Groundhog Week here, week ending 4 Feb. So Groundhog will do his thing on the 2nd. Who knows what he'll see, a shadow or not, but we do expect spring to be a little bit cold and wintry into March. So we're going to say it hangs on for 6 more weeks. Looking at this week, though, we say it's just a hair warmer than last year, 0.2 warmer than last year, 8th coldest in 38 years. So a below average week as we're getting a glancing shot of that polar vortex for sure up in the north central plains where it will be frigid. Precip, again, about 34% drier than last year, driest in 6, 19 driest in 38 years. A little misleading because they're going to have some very heavy rain from Texas to the Carolinas. Again, potentially a few more tornadoes in this mix, but certainly some strong potential thunderstorms with a clash of the really warm tropical, subtropical ridge here, Bermuda High Ridge into the southeast, high pressure clashing with that polar vortex. In between, you got this battleground. Snowfall way down, 81% less than a year ago, least in 18 years, and fifth least in 38. So not much snow to contend with. A little bit. We got one system here going through here today, Saturday, so not counted in those maps, but here today. Again, South Dakota, Nebraska there, you see some 4 to 8, even some upwards of 8 to 10 inches there in Nebraska. This system then traverses into Michigan, and then you can see it kind of fizzles here. A lot of light flurry activity. Some of this is overdone. You'll see a few flakes in these gray, white shaded areas, but not much. So don't get too excited. But a few flakes in the air certainly make it feel more wintry. The week overall, 6-day period overall, 48% less snow than last year, 33% below average, least in 3 years, 14th least in 38 years. So other than South Dakota, Nebraska, parts of the high elevation of the Rockies into Michigan, some snow, but the rest of us, not a ton. This just chart puts it into perspective over the last 38 years here, so a little bit of a downward trend. Next week, a week before Valentine's Day here, again, see some moderating trend here for sure. It's a 1 degree cooler than last year's pretty warm period here. It's 15th warmest in 38 years, so above average national temperatures, and you see the moderating trend. The polar vortex for sure lifting out in the central plains, so still a little bit below average, but a milder trend for sure. Rainfall again 100% more than last year. 12 dries in 38 years, but again some still heavy rain here in parts of the east. Snowfall maybe a hair more than last year, but hair more than nothing is still third least in 38 years. So not a ton of snow for the U.S. as we get into the week before Valentine's Day. If we just aggregate these two trends here, again, you see very, very cold with that polar vortex influence across Canada, parked over pretty much Hudson's Bay, and they did the central plains. But that'll lift out, and again, a moderating trend. Southeast really never gets into this super cold air. Europe, again, cooler western part of Europe and warmer eastern part, so similar trends that we've had here in the U.S. So with that, folks, we hope you have a great week, and we will be back here again this time next week.